Now let's talk about increasing and decreasing intervals. So the increasing intervals are where the x values of the graph go up. So it's very critical and important to remember that these are x values when reading from left to right. These are not the actual graph values. They are not the y values or the f of x values. It is an interval reading from left to right. Our decreasing intervals, similarly, are where the graph is decreasing, and again, x values when we're reading from left to right. So let's take a look at that on our graph. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do some dashed lines where those points happen so that we can get a really good feel for that. So I see that I have a point where I go from increasing to decreasing right here. So I'm going to go ahead and make a dashed line here at -1 to indicate that that's a critical place on my graph. I'm also going to do a dashed line at 1 because that's where I see that my graph is going from decreasing back to increasing. So remember, these are x values, not y values. So I want to say that my increasing interval, where my x values associated with y going up, well, that's everything over this direction. We are increasing. And then in between here, we are decreasing. And then finally, again, we switch to increasing. So whenever we write our increasing and decreasing intervals, we just need to read from left to right and stop at these points. So if I start on the far left, I know that at the far left, I'm at -infinity. And I am continuing to increase my graph until I get to an x value of -1. Remember, it's x values. I don't care that the maximum point is at 4 right now. In the y direction, we'll talk about maximums and minimums here in a minute, but right now I am only focusing on the x interval where I am increasing or decreasing. Now, as I continue to read from left to right, I have this space in here between -1 and 1. And that is a decreasing interval because my graph is going down as I move from left to right from -1 to 1. So I'm going to note that I am decreasing from -1 to 1. Notice that I've got parentheses here and not brackets because exactly at the point -1 and exactly at the point +1, I'm not increasing or decreasing. That's a transition location. It's called a turning point, and we'll talk about those in a minute. Next, as I continue reading from left to right, now I'm starting at 1 and headed towards infinity in the x direction, and I notice that my graph is continuing to head up. It is increasing. So this is another increasing interval. It starts at 1 or just to the right of 1, and it goes on forever to infinity. So that is increasing and decreasing intervals.